Going into the second semester, Gwion and I were feeling fairly confident in what we had learned in making the trailer and pitching the concept to our peers. The visual style we had imagined worked well, allowing us to start focusing on our message and how to convey it. A great deal of our inspiration for the film came from the work of Ron Frick. We were initially introduced to Kronos whilst viewing a small segment of it in a workshop. These images were particularly impactful in both the aesthetic and in method of conveying a message. Both Gwion and I decided that the poetic form of documentary was one we wished to explore further. We watched several of his films together, including Baraka and Simler's work such as Koyaanisqatsi. Not only did we love the visual style and how these films presented their message, we also fell in love with the score by Philip Glass. Understanding the importance of music in the poetic form, we wished to achieve a similarly beautiful music that still achieves its storytelling goals. The poetic form in this context was perfect for a two-man team to tackle within the time frame of the module. With no diegetic sound, we could focus wholly on high-quality cinematography. In short but frequent shooting days, we could cover all of the content required. During the downtime, we could cover the time-lapse shots. This made for a concept that could be made on a small scale but have much larger implications for the country as a whole. We particularly enjoyed the medium's traditional lack of characters. We took that as a challenge with both films we made in the module. Into the Pulpit, we told the audience about a character through pure observation of a day in his life. In Cissonius, the characters were to be the stores themselves. Each one tells a story of what that store does, its customer interactions, and the relationship with the community, as if each shop has its own personality. I think it's far more interesting to an audience to allow them to form an idea of a character by observing the subject, rather than manipulating them into a certain viewpoint. The message of supporting small business was an important one to Gwion and I. Aberystwyth is a place of great importance to Gwion, and seeing his favourite places from his childhood close was an unpleasant experience. In particular, the closing of the hot bread shop featured in the trailer. I grew up in Blackpool. This issue has gripped our high street, even closing my granddad's butchers. After the pitch, the glaring inconsistency in our film was the message. Our initial ideas were too accusatory and blaming larger, more corporate structures for the death of the small business. Whilst there is some truth to that, they are not solely responsible. Gwion and I felt it is unfair to paint Tesco and their counterparts in such a negative way when the issues are human. The success of supermarkets is a product of humanity's desire for convenience in developed countries. To keep prices competitive, supermarkets will often choose suppliers whose priorities lie with volume over quality. We need to return to a place of value not only on price but experience, building relationships with people and their stores. Small local businesses are largely supportive of local suppliers, such as small farmers who produce little but quality product. Changing our message to the importance of local business in the community and why they deserve our support was much less combative and more professional. Cissonius was never designed to tell you what to think. We didn't want to establish the small shops as struggling underdogs and larger, more corporate businesses such as Tesco as the evil antagonist. In fact, we wanted to show that this is an easy opinion to hold, and it's important to show that on a community scale, Tesco is just as important than any other shop and isn't actively trying to close down local businesses. With the large amount of characters in our film, building relationships with each was a large undertaking. We set out by producing small handouts for use in canvassing Aberystwyth small businesses. This proved largely successful for opening a dialogue with each business. The more businesses we visited, the more confident we became in our spiel. Most of the businesses seemed interested and some actively excited to be approached. Some were very difficult to persuade, however, such in the case of Driftwood, a small local craft shop. They had been burned by a previous documentary team. Our adapted, more positive message did quell some of their worries, and eventually they agreed to take part in the documentary. Having signed up multiple businesses, we set to establishing a structure that would effectively convey our message. When first envisioning the film, we aimed to give each small business its own segment, exploring its unique features in a deliberately pleasant slow motion. Separating these portraits would be time-lapse shots of Aberystwyth showing the speed of modern life. This would culminate in Tesco having its own segment of the film. In stark contrast to the style of the local businesses, Tesco would be shot in high-speed time-lapse, similar to that of the town. However, we felt the structure catered more towards our initial, more aggressive message. After several discussions with each other and with our course tutor Greg Bevan, we decided on a structure that would focus more around certain areas of Tesco, for example the bread section. In this scenario, we would open on a bakery and compare this to its equivalent section in Tesco. This would be repeated with other comparable departments. Then dividing up these segments would be shots growing in scale relating to Tesco, starting initially small in scale, such as close-ups of products, people's feet as they walk, and trolley wheels. This would expand outwards, exploring the car park, then the streets, and eventually building to a time-lapse over Aberystwyth. This way we could compare small businesses to larger ones more directly and without demonising Tesco. We were particularly organised in our approach to the film, meeting weekly to discuss what we could do to move the film forward over the coming week. Gwion and I worked very well together. We know each other's strengths and can often pick up where the other left off. This made task delegation very easy. With both of us having a drive and personal reasons to make this film, we were proactive and collaborative. I'm very proud of the work we put in, producing the handouts, posters, marketing materials and a Facebook page under our name Twin Caps. I believe we made these to a high standard which made us look professional and capable in the eyes of our subjects, making them more comfortable and allowing us access to their businesses. On reflection, one thing that we might have done better, which may have influenced the film without us knowing, was that we sought out businesses that were visually stimulating. We looked at bakeries, restaurants and bookshops that had an impactful aesthetic or had a uniquely interesting activity, such as a chef preparing a meal. This meant that we omitted shops that we personally deemed boring, imparting a bias that we hadn't picked up on during the time of our production. In conclusion, I think the pre-production of Cissonius went very well. I had confidence that it would be the quality documentary that Gwion and I desired. We worked hard producing the project, and were disappointed that we were inevitably unable to make the film. One day I do hope to bring Cissonius back to life.